We will call the November 5th meeting of the Ormond Beach City Commission to order. This is the regular City Commission meeting. It is 7 p.m. and we are in the Commission chambers. I hope you felt welcome tonight by our City Engineer, Sean Finley, and our Planning Director, Stephen Spraker. They were our greeters this evening. I'd like to introduce the folks who are sitting up in front of you. To my right, your left, Recording Secretary Cassidy Ritz, City Clerk Colby Salento, Commissioner from Zone 1 Dwight Selby, our Deputy Mayor and Zone 2 Commissioner Troy Kent. To my left and your right, Commissioner Susan Persis, Zone 3, Commissioner Rob Littleton, Zone 4, our City Manager Joyce Shanahan, our Assistant City Manager Claire Whitley, City Attorney Randy Hayes, and for those of you listening online, I'm Mayor Bill Partington. If you would, please silence your cell phones at this time, and we will have the invocation tonight by Pastor Mike Petrick from Harbor Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Amen. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening. We know this is November, a month that we look to say thank yous for so many things, Father. It's a month of Thanksgiving, and we say that even tonight as we have these ladies and gentlemen gathering together tonight to discuss city matters, Lord. And I pray that all things be done decently in order as you would desire. We thank you for your word that simply says, I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, and intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. And Father, that it is our desire as folks of our town, and we just trust, Lord, that you'll have a settled peace about this building tonight, Lord, that things can be said rightly and clearly, and open minds will be readied, and Father, that decisions can be made and things can be discussed and done well. Thank you, Lord, for all the agenda and all that's needed to be done. And Lord, we ask that you just oversee it all. We thank you for these good ladies and gentlemen that are leading us and helping us in such a way. Lord, bless them individually and bless them as well in their family. And Father, I ask that you bless our first responders that are here as well. God, we need them. We appreciate them. And again, we're so thankful. Please have your way in all that's said and done tonight. We pray in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will have audience remarks, and we'll hear from those of you who have signed a card to speak about any item which is not on the printed agenda for this meeting. Tonight, we will start with Jim Cameron.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Jim Cameron, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, Daytona Regional Chamber. And I gave Colby, hope y'all got my little flyers there. And just wanted to just kind of give you some reminders of things. Next week, we're having a program, and this is on resilience, though. And it's going to be at the local level. We have County Environmental Director Ginger Adair. And then from the regional Central Florida, we have Jennifer Rupert. But then our keynote speaker is the state's new Chief Resilience Officer has just been appointed, Julia Neshiwat. So this is a topic that's being talked about more and more in the legislature-wise up there in Tallahassee. So if anybody'd like to join us, we think this is going to be very informative and all. And then on the flip side of that, though, because I try to save paper, but some of y'all was with us up there last March for Volusia Days at the Capitol. Now, this is going to be January the 15th and 16th. Now, that's day 2 and day 3 of the session. But we're going to start off, I do have an appointment already set it last week, with Mike Sittig, President, Florida League of Cities. So, if y'all want to, start off with him and find out what's going on, some of the legislation that, city-wise, so that affects you. And then we've got meetings with legislators being set up there, but the whole focus is coming back here to Volusia County, things that pertain to us here in Volusia County, though. And like I said, we've got other speakers, though, CFO Jimmy Petronas and others, though. But so if anybody'd be interested in joining us, and then I'm also going to be doing some day trips after that. If anybody'd like to go up there for a day, that's a long trip, but it's I'm taking about 5 or 6 people, though. But just I like to do that during the session, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate all you do. Next is Irene Todora.
Hello, my name is Irene Todora, and I live at 350 Cumberland Avenue. I'm the one that sent that email out to you last night. I'm the one, and I'm here because our neighborhood's properties are flooding even after a moderate rainstorm. The only solution left now is a retention pond and our canal dredged and working again. We have nowhere for stormwater runoff to go. We have nowhere for flooding water to go. We have nowhere for mosquito control to go. In 11904, the city knew how bad we were because they applied for a seawall grant to put a seawall up. That's how bad our flooding was, but they put it in too late. In 2007, Commissioner Galuli turned in a petition signed by 30 people in our neighborhood that said no more fill dirt would be used in our neighborhood because in the year 2002, 2 lots on Andrews, 1 on Putnam in our neighborhood were approved by the city for development with hundreds of dump loads of fill dirt. Am I done? Oh, no. Okay. No. After these 3 homes were built, our flooding issues became extreme, and that's when the city applied for the seawall grant. But they never made any provision for us. They never did anything. So there's no provision for the stormwater runoff. 10/4/19, my entire backyard was underwater for over a week. My problem is 2 years ago, we have a new family. Their children are 4, 2, and 2 months old. They have no backyard they can play with because it's wet, it's muddy and damp, and now it's sinking. So now I'm going to fight for this harder than I ever had because we can't play in our backyards. These little children can't even go back there. I brought along an aerial map that shows 7 blocks of my neighborhood. 6 blocks have a retention pond. We're the only one without it. We also used to have a canal that worked, but all the hundreds of fill dirt brought in filled it in. So we need that dredged. There are 3 lots on Putnam, 2 for sale. 1 is an abandoned stilt home. If the city could buy these lots and then put a retention pond in us, we're going to save our neighborhoods. Otherwise, we're lost. And I don't, like I said, I have this much paperwork at home through the years corresponding with the city. But the city told us that we were protected unbuildable wetlands, and Shannon Julian, environmental consultant, told us that we are a tidally influenced Class 1 wetland. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
And I think we all got your email. I know I did.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Steve Berdeguez. Sorry about that. Berdeguez.
Hi, I'm Steve Berdeguez, 340 Cumberland Avenue. I'm on the same issue as Irene Todora. I've been in Ormond Beach for probably 13 years old, and actually went to school with Randy Hayes there. And on our area, we're near Sanchez Park, Cumberland and Putnam. The people on Putnam have had it worse than us for all these years. We're on Cumberland. And if you go down to Sanchez, you'll see that flooded all the time, also Sanchez Park. I just want to emphasize that the problem Irene Tudor is bringing up is real, and it affects the whole city. And the majority of our people living in that area have lived there a long time. I'm talking about city taxpayers that have lived in the area for 40 years, a number of us over there. And I would just appreciate for all of you to look into it more and see if you could put a retention pond either. We used to have a regular canal in our backyard between Putnam and Cumberland. I used to take my kayak through there. And it was originally, I understand it was originally dug up by the Army Corps of Engineers. But nobody has maintained it. Nobody. I mean, with the weather, trees fall down in there. There's a lot of, the homes they built on Putnam and Andrews, there's 2 homes. And when Irene says they bring 80 loads of dirt with trucks, this is documented, loads of truck, hundreds of loads of dirt being brought in to build these houses. And then eventually, some of the dirt settles into where the canal was. And there was also a home directly behind us on Putnam, between Cumberland and Putnam, where they built another home. And when they build these homes, they raise them up, 4 feet, and you're next to the neighbors. The house is up here, and the neighbor's low. So there's like 3 homes over there, and everybody's bringing, and the lots are for sale over there right now. And the problem is, when they put the house, I know there's one guy who had to abandon his house on Putnam. In the house, I think there's 2 people on Putnam that were flooded so bad, I don't even know if they're back in their homes. But what we need is for the city to seriously go over there and look at the situation. They got a stilt house they built, and they never finished the stilt house. I mean, they finished it, but it's water under it all the time. 365 days a year, there's water under it. If they sell those lots and people come to build, what are they going to do? They're going to be bringing 100 truckloads of dirt again. And when they bring 100 dirt loads of truck, 100 dirt loads of truck, sand, dirt, whatever, I'm getting confused here. It's going to end up, we're going to get more flooded. I understand hurricanes flooding us. Our garage got flooded. Thank God the home didn't get flooded. But if this continues, everybody in the neighborhood, people are going to get flooded. Thank you, Steve.
Next up is Jury, is it Adams? John Adams. Sorry about that. That's a F for penmanship, John. I'm sorry. You must have been writing fast.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go by whatever's easiest for you. Okay. I wanted to ask about the one-way. We talked previously about the one-way of Florence Avenue, which is behind our building at 54 South Atlantic and 88 South Atlantic. I know that we discussed it, and we talked about trying to get that done before construction began. I know it's on the agenda for later today. I don't think it's related, so I didn't want to tie it to that and tie them up. But at the same time, I'm hoping that somebody has an update to let me know where that stands and if we're going to get that one-way so that when they start construction and close that parking off, we're going to have some sort of relief.
Any update on that, Joyce?
I think Stephen can update.
Okay. Steve, you can do that after the meeting or right now if you guys want to go in back. But thank you for asking the question. I know staff's been working on it, and they'll get you a response.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Jim Schultz.
Jim Schultz, 117 Harvard Drive. Last time I spoke about Edward Bernays' propaganda and American Cancer Association, probably were wondering why. Well, I was sort of preparing you for something else. Edward Bernays actually, with his fantastic spin doctoring, worked for Alcoa Aluminum, the biggest fluoride polluter in the 20s. He also worked for American Cancer, the American Tobacco Association. Got the name wrong there by mistake. Had many others. But he always claimed that you didn't need to actually have facts or data. All you needed to do was get a good byline. something that people could hang on to. And the people that did your promotion didn't actually have to believe in it either. With the interview with Christopher Bryson, he went into that, about the endorsements he got from dentists and doctors. Bryson asked him, well, did they believe it? Doesn't matter, he said. In other words, as long as you can get them mouth the words, have the respectable-looking white jacket and glasses, and you go back and look at the American Tobacco Association ads, and it looks darn near like the same doctor all the time, the way they present it. In other words, you do the right presentation, people have trust. But anyways, there's three things on the city website now that are about fluoridation, that instead of just water quality. One of them is about the 2006, November 9th, infants shouldn't have fluoridated water. That came out, American Dental Association, the CDC, strangely in the same week. That's on there because they knew that babies were the most susceptible. Now the data shows that no, babies that are in the womb are the most susceptible because they're coming out with lower IQ because of fluoride exposure. But the one that bothers me the most is the one where on your site that says that severe dental fluorosis is virtually non-existent, because we know there's a hidden study that the government was very aware of that they haven't published yet, showing 65% have dental fluorosis, 32.4% have moderate and severe, and it's more than a couple percent with severe. It's time for reality.
Thank you, Jim. Michael McBride.
Good evening, council members. Michael McBride, 58 River Drive, Ormond by the Sea. I'm delivering this speech on behalf of Roger Nutt of 2587 John Anderson Drive, Ormond by the Sea, who can't be here this evening. At the last meeting on Tuesday, October 15th, the homeowners of Ormond by the Sea gave advance notice that they would present a petition at this meeting requesting a proper scientific study to investigate whether the septic systems of Ormond by the Sea make a significant contribution to the existing pollution in the Halifax River or Tomoka Basin. Copies of the call to action for the petition were given to the commissioners at the last meeting. It has 1,035 signatures, which will be submitted to you this evening in hard copy. The petition will remain open for additional signatures, and they are being obtained as I speak. The primary reason given for converting septic systems in Ormond by the Sea to the central sewer plant in Ormond Beach is that septic systems are polluting the Halifax River, Tomoka River Basin. This is merely an assumption. There is, in fact, no provable evidence for this conclusion. For this reason, our petition asks for the controlled scientific study to investigate whether our septic systems are polluting or not. Until the answer is known, it would be an irresponsible waste of time and money to carry out any further work on the proposed septic to sewer conversion project. This includes the pending Phase 1 planning and design study, for which over $1 million has already been allocated. Under normal weather conditions, it is our assessment that the proposed conversion can be expected to increase pollution in the waterways. At times of severe storms or hurricanes, the probability of massive amounts of raw sewerage being deposited on the land or in water from broken pipes because of electrical power failures are real threats. There is evidence for this from recent experiences in Tampa Bay and St. Augustine. Additionally, there have been problems in Ormond Beach. The Ormond Beach Observer reported in regard to the Ormond Beach treatment plant on October 29th that pre-treatment effluent pumping tanks were broken by heavy rain on October 19th. There is a total of 5 broken PEP tanks in the city. Pollution in the Halifax River and Tomoka Basin can be cleaned up, but first you must find the real source of the problem. The only way to do that is to test, and until you do so, we are just guessing at best. There also needs to be a comprehensive discussion on the capacity in stormwater, solid waste, water, and sewer. The Ormond Beach and Ormond by the Sea residents deserve to know that their tax dollars and future assessments are being based on accurate information. Thank you kindly for your time in this matter.
Thank you, Michael. Rashida Hakeem.
Rashida Hakeem, Ormond by the Sea. With the 2013 Health Department report now thoroughly exposed as not containing any actual data collected from Ormond by the Sea septic systems, let alone any that indicates that they are actually polluting the waterway, I am pleased that so many people who may have some part in the decision to fund and authorize a proper scientific study are now responding to the need for one. At the News Journal's recent coffee event at Alfie's, Mr. Selby announced that he would be recommending to the City Commission that the science be performed and a real study be done to determine the actual sources of pollution in the Halifax. This is an ambitious plan, but one that needs to be done if we are to determine how to get the clean river we all desire. Unfortunately, though it is relatively easy to detect nitrogen and phosphorus in water, it is not a simple task to determine the specific sources of this nutrient pollution. According to the EPA, primary contributors that relate to human activity may be agriculture, including fertilizer and animal manure, stormwater runoff that carries surface pollution, wastewater from both sewer systems and septic systems, fossil fuels, and household chemicals. To determine whether there is significant pollution from human waste, scientists often look for the presence of biological markers like fecal indicator bacteria. Microbial source tracking can help determine a high likelihood of a human versus an animal source, and DNA from water samples can be analyzed. It is my understanding that there are not significant levels of these particular bacteria in the Halifax. Another method is to identify potential sources using stable isotopes of nitrate to track sources, comparing samples to a reference material as a standard. This can point to different types of contributors, but is not specific enough to be much use for our purposes. Chemical markers, such as artificial sweeteners, are very good for determining that there is contribution from human waste, since they are not degraded by digestion or water treatment systems. The discharged, partially treated water from the Ormond wastewater treatment facility could well contain high levels of these chemicals, as could any discharge from septic systems. You can see the problem here. Even if we do find evidence of human waste-related contributions, what will indicate that the septic systems of Ormond by the Sea are to blame, rather than discharge from Ormond Beach's own treatment facility or any of the other nearby septic systems on either side of the waterway? Clearly, we need soil testing of the septic systems of Ormond by the Sea to determine to what degree, if any, they are contributing to nutrient pollution of the Halifax and Tomoka Basin. This testing must include sufficient samples from different depths and locations and at different times of the year to draw an accurate conclusion. A septic system includes the drain field, a site of microbial activity that removes nitrogen and phosphorus from the effluent, so the testing must be performed beneath the drain fields and compared to similar locations that do not include septic systems. I am not a scientist, and obviously the design of the test must be determined by experts in the field, but I hope the Commission will recognize and understand the need for consideration of these complexities. Thank you.
Thank you. Samantha Olson.
Samantha Olson, Ormond by the Sea. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbor Janet Nutt, who could not be here with us today. To quote Mrs. Nutt, I would like to tell you a little story. While collecting signatures for our petition on Saturday morning, we noticed an old man sitting in a wheelchair in the hot sun on the opposite side of the road trying to cross to our side. This wasn't a chair with big wheels which he could turn himself to get moving. It was really a push chair with very small wheels intended for someone else to push. A1A was busy, and even when there was a break in traffic, it was quite difficult to push the small wheels of his chair onto the road surface to get it to move across. The driver of a UPS truck noticed our struggle and stopped so that we could get across, and an SUV traveling south also stopped. Shielded by two vehicles, we pushed the old man in his chair safely across the road. There were 6 vehicles stopped behind the UPS truck and 4 behind the UPS truck, SUV. Not one of these vehicles sounded a horn, hollered, or expressed any distress at being delayed. They just sat and waited patiently until the wheelchair was safely across the road and out of the way before they continued their journeys. We were in Ormond by the Sea. What I have just described to you is the kind of behavior we have come to expect from people in Ormond by the Sea. We'd like to keep it that way. The elderly man in the wheelchair was a retired Army captain. We gave him water, and a retired vet in our group took him and his wheelchair where he wanted to go in Ormond Beach. If our septic systems aren't polluting the river, and we don't think they are, we'd like to keep them. If you think we are polluting, we believe it's your responsibility to prove it. And we don't plan to change or to give you any of our money until you do. We don't want the kind of people your city's frenetic overdevelopment and dirty municipal sewers will bring to our little community. Leave us alone. Thank you. This concludes Mrs. Nutt's section. Although Commissioner Selby has indicated several times that possible sources of funding to support this project include St. John's Water Management, state appropriations, FDEP grants, and Volusia County, County Chair Ed Kelly does not seem to be aware that Volusia County is included in this proposition. Today at the County Council meeting, he stated that the only time this project would be a county concern would be if Ormond Beach wants to, quote-unquote, do a taxing situation to have people pay for it, and the project is, quote-unquote, so far off of consideration, that's the time the county would be involved. Mr. Kelly does not seem willing to acknowledge the role that Volusia County would need to play in this project. It seems peculiar that Mr. Kelly insists on denying that the county will be asked for assistance when he was in the audience while it was discussed, like at the recent News Journal coffee event at Alfie's. Without the cooperation of Volusia County, how can this project succeed? If the county is unwilling to work with Ormond Beach, this will place even more of a burden on the Ormond by the Sea residents. Thank you very much.
Mary Ann Connors.
Thank you. If I had driven here this evening in a 40 or 50-year-old car, would anyone ask me to test the air before they wondered whether that automobile was treating air emissions? It's not a perfect analogy. It's just meant to make a point that when something is old and substandard, it's a problem. It's the nature of infrastructure. If new development were being proposed today, it would not be on septics, it would not be on package plants, and certainly not in the concentrations we see on the North Penn. The petition for proof is, it's not harmful, but it doesn't change the problem or the solution. Septic impacts under the wrong conditions have been documented throughout Florida and in Volusia County. The Keys, West Coast, Indian River Lagoon, every time it was not a problem until it was. This area is no different. Are the septics the only problem? Absolutely not. But there's no problem that should be off the table, and there is no scenario in which thousands of old septic tanks on small lots are suitable for a barrier island. The layers of opposition, annexation, high-rise conspiracies, not this area, not this street, not my house, not me, are inexhaustible, not because the problem is unclear, but because the solution is unclear as to funding. It won't end until the money is clear, and maybe not after that. If there was a sign up tonight saying I've got 100 free connections, I might get some takers in this room. So it's a money problem, and that's where we should focus. The North Penn is particularly complex because there's no other area in this county except maybe Deltona where there's this number of septic tanks and a diversity of both property values and property types. These properties, some of them will need substantial assistance and some won't. But that's the discussion we should be having. We should be debating solutions and not problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Craig.
Hi, I'm Donna Craig. I live in Ormond by the Sea. I recently purchased a house in our sweet little beachfront community. One of the reasons that I chose to live there is because it is a sweet little beachfront community. So I was a little bit surprised a few months after I moved in to find out that there was this issue of the septic to sewer conversion. My little septic tank works perfectly fine. I live in the house alone. I don't use a lot. I don't have any problems with it. I have yet to hear any of my neighbors have had problems with it. The science that I've read about so far and heard reports on so far indicates that the North Peninsula is a perfect area for septic, and I don't really see that there's a need for the residents of Ormond by the Sea to be forced to pay thousands, if not tens of thousands. I know the rumors are all over of what the final cost would be per household, but it's a large amount. And as a new homeowner, the last thing I need is more expense added to that. So I really hope that we can find out what the real source of the problem is, rather than spend $1 million or in excess of $1 million on a plan for fixing something when we don't even really know what the problem is. So think about the testing, and if it turns out not to be necessary to a conversion, then let's work on a way to make the septics work properly for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I'm going to make some comments on septic to sewer and then open it up for the rest of the commission also at this time to make some comments. We don't get to discuss this outside of these chambers because of the Sunshine Law. So commissioners, over the last several weeks, I've heard from a number of residents of Ormond by the Sea regarding their concerns about the possible impact of converting their homes from septic tanks to sewer. And I'm sure you're hearing from folks as well. Just reading the papers, letters to the editor. I know Commissioner Selby wrote a letter to the editor or op-ed piece. All of those things have presented many different viewpoints. And this commission unanimously has made our local environment a priority. And I think we believe it's our role to assist in addressing any issues that are causing nitrogen and phosphorus in our water, which can lead to green slime and algae blooms and other serious environmental and health concerns. And I think everybody can agree we don't want that, and we need to find what the cause is of those things. Our involvement with Ormond by the Sea in the North Peninsula area is that Ormond Beach is the only city close enough to reasonably provide water and sewer services to the area. And that's why they're our utility area. They are our customers. We are the utility provider. And I think we've already made it clear we would never annex Ormond by the Sea unless Ormond by the Sea came to us and asked us to. That's been our policy for years after, I think, at least two failed votes. And so that hasn't really changed. And so our Ormond by the Sea residents who are our customers have raised concerns on the potential financial impacts of converting to sewer, also on the overall effectiveness of sewer and the validity of the science involved. And we're listening and we're hearing those concerns. I had a Monday with the mayor meeting a couple weeks ago, and there were at least 15 folks out of 25 or 30 that were from Ormond by the Sea, and they brought up all those concerns. And so I think that we as a commission, in order to be good stewards for our environment, and while at the same time wanting to respect our neighbors who are our customers in Ormond by the Sea, as a city government, we've already shown that we understand the value of listening to and engaging residents in helping make our city a great place to live and work. By using a platform similar to the award-winning OB Life initiative, I think we should extend a series of public meetings to our neighbors in the North Peninsula area in Ormond by the Sea to ensure that all voices are being heard on this project as well. And so with all that in mind, I'd like to ask the Commission to direct the City Manager to bring back some options to us that address the science of this project, and also that we halt or stop, at least temporarily, the design process to allow these scientific results time to be completed. I would like our staff to identify during this time some alternative projects that reaffirm our commitment to improving water quality and continue to support our efforts to further reduce our environmental footprint. This pause or stop would also allow time for our neighbors in the septic to sewer project area in Ormond by the Sea to get the additional scientific assurances that they're seeking. Our commitment to helping address environmental issues remains firm, but Ormond Beach can make strides in other ways to achieve this in the immediate future while gathering the additional information on septic to sewer and then deciding where to go once we have that scientific data. And so, I mean, to sum it up, we're committed to the environment, but we are listening to all residents who are affected by this, and there should be science supporting any decisions, and I think this commission wants to continue to provide environmental stewardship on behalf of all our residents to prevent green slime, algae blooms, and improve water quality. But I'd like to see at this time if there's a second to that approach or any further discussion. If there was a second, we could continue to discuss it. But
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second that motion.
Commissioner Selby, thank you. And would you like an opportunity for discussion purposes?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm sure you referenced it. You read my op-ed in the Ormond Observer that ran a week or so ago. Obviously, I've been listening also to the residents of Ormond by the Sea. And interestingly enough, I should mention that there are a lot of residents, or even some here tonight, who 100%, who live in Ormond by the Sea, who 100% support the conversion from septic to sewer. So while the vast majority of the most vocal folks are against it, opposed to it, there are a lot of people who are for it, who are reluctant to speak out. So, but that being said, and also I was asked at the meeting at Alfie's put on by the News Journal why we hadn't done a study prior to allocating the money to design and permit the first phase. And I said, and I'll repeat it here, that honestly it had never occurred to me that anybody would challenge or that anybody would think that central sewer is not, that septic is better than central sewer. So that part really, I just didn't anticipate that. So I think it is, concerns have been raised about the science that support the notion that that central sewer, that sewer septic is, it needs to be, the septic systems need to be converted to sewer. And also, I do agree with Ms. Connors, Marianne Connors. I really think the single biggest issue here is the cost. And unfortunately, the opposition has created fear and passed along a tremendous amount of misinformation about the topic when they say costs like $10,000, $15,000, $30,000. I've even seen numbers in excess of $40,000 that the homeowner would be responsible for. I'm here to say that that is absolutely ridiculous. It would not be anywhere near that, and the total cost would be significantly less than that, or even I wouldn't support it. So with that being said, I like your ideas a lot, Mr. Mayor. There are St. John's River Water Management District identifies on their website 7 sources of water pollution. And this is one of the comments that's been made by some folks is, why aren't you doing something about those other concerns? And so with that, you probably saw in my op-ed, and I'll say it again here tonight, that I would recommend that the staff, in addition to, I think this may be just an amplification of your motion, Mr. Mayor, the staff look into possible ways to address all 7 of those, and I'll just share with you what those 7 contributors are. They're central sewer systems, septic tanks, stormwater runoff, fertilizer and pesticides, discharges from farmlands, sediment from construction sites, and industry. So St. John's, has identified those 7 things. And I have a couple of specific things that I would hope that the staff would look at. One is a moratorium on septic tanks in the city of Ormond Beach on new construction, so that within our boundaries that no new construction would happen, that we would adopt a moratorium on new septic systems associated with new construction. And the second thing is, and I just want to say this before I make this second recommendation, is that we have never, ever, the city of Ormond Beach, our wastewater treatment plant, we have never discharged raw sewage into the Halifax River. Oh, and by the way, we do not discharge anything into the Tomoka River, as been said by others. We do not discharge into the Tomoka River, period. Okay? But I want to go on the record and tell you that we have never discharged raw sewage into the Halifax River. We have an advanced wastewater treatment facility, which is about as high as you can get as regulated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. The second big recommendation is that we reduce the amount of effluent that goes, that's the outflow from the wastewater treatment plant, that we reduce that, the amount that goes into the Halifax River now. We process almost 5 million gallons a day, okay? Almost 5 million gallons of sewage comes into the wastewater treatment plant. After it's processed, 5 million gallons has to go somewhere, okay? In the dry season, it goes out. We have a very massive reuse system, reclaimed water system. People irrigate their lawns with it. It's 95%, minimum of 95% of the nutrients are removed from that effluent. 95% minimum, sometimes it's 98, 99% of the nitrogen and phosphorus are removed in our wastewater treatment plant, okay? So that effluent that is going into the river, and it only goes into the river when we don't have demand for it, in the rainy season, when nobody's watering their lawns, okay, when the golf course doesn't need it. And we can store about 8 million gallons in our existing storage facilities. Well, that's not even 2 days worth of effluent, right? So we need a lot more storage of effluent. If we could store more effluent in the rainy season, there'd be huge demand for it in the dry season, okay? Because right now we have to shut the effluent off. We have to shut the reuse off in the dry season. Many times people don't get what they want because of that. I also think we can do a better job on educating residents about the fertilizer, the county fertilizer ordinance now. We can help people to understand it better. I made a comment. I have a spray service at my house. I don't know what those people do. People have criticized me for that. Oh, you should know. I don't. I hire a professional to do it. Are they violating the ordinance? I don't know. Are they? I doubt it, but maybe they are. I'm not criticizing anybody, but that's something else we could look into. And then I think, the other things, stormwater runoff, sediment from construction, industry, and farmland. I want to hear from staff, how can we do a better job of those other potential sources? And finally, and I agree with that's why I second the motion, that a study should be done to determine the impact, the sources and impact of pollution in our waterways. It's all our water, and together we can help solve this problem. We can help move in the direction we want to move. Some people call it corny, but this is my basic philosophy. I was in scouting. I'm an Eagle Scout, and we always left our campsites cleaner than when we got there, which means we hauled out other people's trash. When we would camp somewhere, we would take out all our trash and any trash from anybody else. When we left the campsite, you didn't even know we had been there, okay? It was better than when we got there. I believe as a community, we have that same responsibility, that's our responsibility. And I think we can do better. I think together we can do better. And I think if we can get on the same page, we can create something that's good for everybody, especially our kids and our grandkids. It isn't just about us. You know, I think I'm the oldest one in this community. I'm definitely the oldest one in this commission. Never thought about it before, but you know, it's not just about me. It's about my kids and my grandkids, and it's about our kids and our grandkids, the future. We have a responsibility to do that, to make this place better. And I don't feel like we're doing that yet. I actually appreciate, well, I don't appreciate the criticism. I appreciate the fact that concerns have been brought up and that we haven't adequately addressed them. I'm a relative novice at this whole political thing, you know, and I've only been on this commission for 3 years. And maybe we could have done this differently, but, you know, we are where we are. We're here now. We got to move forward from here. So I support your motion. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I stand ready to answer questions or to address anybody else.
Thank you. Commissioner Selby. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Person. Oh,
Yeah, when you finish up.
I'm sorry?
I just want to help you out with the procedural aspect of the motion.
Okay. Commissioner Person.
I just want to thank all those that came here tonight to speak for taking time out of your day to come here and address us. And I hope you know that we were all listening to you and we take all your concerns to heart. And I just want to compliment Mayor Partington and Commissioner Selby for what they said, because I don't know that I can add anything to what you've said, and I agree with 100% with everyone, but I do love this community. This is my home. I was born here, right here in Halifax Hospital, and I too want my kids and my grandkids to grow up in a beautiful, clean, you know, a place where the water's clean and you can go fishing and you can just, you know, use the water the way I did when I was little. So I just want to, you know, let you all know, you know, because I know you're all busy, you all have jobs or something that, you know, you could be doing other than being here. But I just want to thank you for being here, and we're going to do everything we can to make this all good for everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Persis. Commissioner Lewis.
Thank you. I agree with the overall premise of the motion. I would like to ask if we're going to halt for septic and sewer if it's only in Ormond by the Sea, because we have some projects in Ormond Beach that, right, 3 streets in Ormond Beach near Fiesta Heights. If we're going to continue to do that, I just want a clarification.
My intention was to halt everything until we had the science in place, because just if we need it for Ormond by the Sea, I believe we're going to need it for Ormond Beach, and I don't know that those studies have been done other than the 2013 report that we already have, but I think we would need that first. And this is, you know, when you talk about listening and being responsive to either your residents or your utility customers, I'm grateful for the Ormond by the Sea folks for bringing these issues up, because it's allowed us, I think, to put a better process in place to go through these issues kind of one by one. And so it would make sense to have the science in place before we do the OB Life type series, meeting with the residents and going back and forth on those sessions. So I would say it includes all of it.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I have a few comments I'd like to share. And before I do, Ormond by the Sea, boy oh boy, am I proud of you. And let me ask, and let me just state this. You know, I always tell people at my Coffee with Commissioner Kent's, which, by the way, I host at my home the first Monday of every month. But I always tell them, go to City Hall, fill out that card, talk. You can change the minds of people that are making the decisions much easier than you can at the state level and especially at the federal level. So a big plug for local government there. I learned a long time ago that the most important business when you're in the business is to mind your own business. And it made me reflect, why are we doing this? Ormond Beach, why were we doing this? Before I heard everybody speak, but you have no idea what everybody's going to say because we have to wait until we have a public meeting like tonight. But why are we doing this? Did it feel good? Was it the right thing to do? Some facts. This is not our city. You're not our residents. the most important question was looked over. And I agree with Commissioner Selby. He said, could we have done it differently? I think the answer is we should have done it differently. And I hope if this ever goes forward that we do, or whoever's sitting in these chairs does it differently. Because the most important question was never asked to you, the affected party. And it's a simple question. Do you want this? That drives everything. Do you want it? I hate to repeat myself, but you're not our residents. You're not our constituent base. We don't represent you. I'd love to, but facts are facts. We don't. Over $1 million on a feasibility study. I called the city manager this past week and said, how far along are we? And she said, we haven't spent a dime. And I said, great news. I read in the paper where at one point there was going to be a question asked to this commission about spending more money on another study to see if septic tanks in the North Peninsula are even polluting our waterways and our river. And I go right back to, why would we do that, spend money on that, if you don't want the project? We need, I say we, Ormond Beach, we need to get our own house in order before we start telling you how to get your house in order. We need to make sure that we are doing everything you heard the elected officials say, and then some, about making sure we're not discharging any amounts of anything negative into our waterways, period. Now, I've always liked listening to old timers. And my granddad, who was in the U.S. Army Air Corps at Pearl Harbor, flew bombing raids on B-17s over a European campaign. He moved down here in the late 40s, early 50s, and became a shrimper for 2 years. He sold the business when the river changed. And he told me before he passed, you used to be able to see your feet in the bottom of that river. There was grass growing on it. And he told me it didn't change because of the homes. It didn't change because of the septic systems. He said it all changed when they put in Dunlawton Bridge. It stopped the natural flow of the river. He said it got flushed every day. And it stopped that flow. And all you have to do is, for me, is get into a boat and head up that way. And you look at the islands that are created because of the traffic lanes they put in the river. And it makes sense to me. I think my granddad was right on point. We need to get our own house in order first. We need to get our own residents, all of them, off septic before we introduce this into other jurisdictions. I appreciate that there was someone that came before us this evening with 1,035 signatures saying that, you need to do a scientific study. I appreciate that information, but yet again, I'm going to repeat myself probably a third time. I'm not interested in even spending that money unless you want it. Why would we waste the money on something that's not going to come to fruition? It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay? And I'm pleased that we're going to put on hold. I would say stop the investment of $1 million. And then tonight we had some people in my district. Thank you for coming forward on Cumberland about the issue, because I now know a great place to spend money on a water project. Amen to that, right? On Cumberland and Putnam, and guess what? It's in the city of Ormond Beach, and it addresses a real need that you have. This motion tonight, I'll support it because it stops intruding into your privacy. But I will not vote in the future on money spent on a scientific study unless Ormond by the Sea residents ask for the study because you want to switch from septic to sewer. Thank you. Brandon.
Joyce,
what do you have for us, Randy?
You got what you need. Okay. Yes, sir. Procedurally, for the mayor to make a motion, you need to pass the gavel down to the deputy mayor. And the city manager has just told me she's got, I think, what she needs, but if you wouldn't mind restating the motion so we're all clear up here, that would be helpful, if you can do that. Sorry.
Just everything that we all said.
Are you good with that?
I mean, are you okay with that?
Yeah, we'll just reflect on the minutes of that, but Colby, can you just, okay, she has it.
Okay,
Do you want to read it?
we're good with that then.
So now that we've done that correctly, we have the mayor's made a motion. Do we have a second?
We did.
Second.
Great, seconded by Commissioner Selby. Any other comments before we call the question? City Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
We move on to agenda item number 5, approval of the minutes. The minutes from the City Commission meeting October 15, 2019 have been submitted for review, posted to the city's website, and I believe a copy's been available in the library as well. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Hearing none, we'll show those passed unanimously and move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item B as in boy, item 6B.
Item 6B. Thank you, Commissioner Selby. Anyone else? Just need a motion absent item 6B.
Move for approval, consent agenda absent item 6B.
Second.
Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes, and that brings us to 6B.
Resolution number 2019-197, a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the County of Volusia under the ECHO Grants and Aid Program for funding assistance regarding Phase 1 of the restoration plan for the McDonald House, located at 38 East Granada Boulevard, authorizing the execution of all documents incidental thereto, including all contract necessary for the city to accept the grant award, and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2019-197, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. Just need a motion and a second for discussion purposes.
I move approval of resolution number 2019-197.
Second.
And Commissioner Selby.
Yeah, so I just, when I read this is different from what we approved at our last meeting, at the city's participation in it. And I've spoke with City Manager Shanahan. I also spoke with our City Finance Director Kelly. And I don't know, maybe City Manager Shanahan would like to speak to it, or somebody from staff just kind of explain kind of where we're going, where we're headed, and why the change from the last meeting.
Will do. There's two pieces, and I'll ask Kelly McGuire, Finance Director, to come up. The item that you previously approved was a request for the city to become the applicant for the ECHO grant rather than the Historical Society. And this item is actually the grant itself. There is a difference in the financial commitment, and Kelly can explain that.
Right, so we need a minimum of $5,000 to bring our total match between the city and the Historical Society to $200,000. If you would like, in addition to that, we can take an additional $100,000. That will allow us to leverage an additional $100,000 of ECHO. So that additional $100,000 is something you all talked about at the CIP workshop, but didn't make a firm commitment on. So we're asking you today to give us direction as to whether you want to take $100,000 from reserves to leverage potentially an additional $100,000 in grant funding, or if you don't want to do that. It's really up to you.
Also, Kelly, it appears that we're able to, at the last commission meeting, we were told that we can only put the land in at $50,000, and in this write-up we got it at over $83,000. So we pick up $33,000 in value there.
That's correct. It must have been incorrect at the last one.
Yeah, okay. So, the bottom line on this is, and from my understanding is that the limitation on the city of Ormond Beach is $400,000 a year from ECHO. That's the maximum we can get. Is that correct?
Per grant. Per
grant or
because
for
we have
all grants?
No, it's not for all grants. You can apply for multiple grants. Initially, when ECHO started, they only allowed a city to get one grant per year. Over the last several years, they've awarded communities multiple grants. And as the time frame is running out for ECHO, they've been increasingly awarding more than one grant per city. I think 2 years ago, New Smyrna Beach got 2 or 3 grants at one time.
And Kelly, don't we also, we preliminarily have this extra $100,000 in the 2021 CIP, right?
Correct. We have it in the CIP, so it's not included in the budget. If you give us direction to include that in the ECHO grant, then we would include it in the 2021 budget. So we would be bringing back that to you to give formal approval in July.
Right. Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Kelly, so if instead of just $105,000 from our general fund reserve, if we went with $171,000 and some change to make it an even $400,000 request, is that? I mean, that would have a negligible effect, I would think, on our reserve.
Right. That would be a fraction of a percent of the reserve, and you'd still be well above the 15% benchmark.
And that could get us to halfway of what's going to be required just to restore the exterior of the, like, basically 2 sides, $200,000 per side. So that's $800,000, and then we have to figure out how we're going to do the other 2 sides. And something, I mean, when you look at the eastern side, which is almost non-existent, it's like a sheet that's hanging there. That would seem to be running maybe more than the 200,000, or maybe it is just 200,000.
If we contributed 171,000, and then we have this historical societies, and we receive 400,000 from ECHO, that should give us enough. That should give us 800,000, and that should be enough to do all of it, all 4 sides.
Yeah. Okay.
We're estimating approximately 200,000 per side.
All right. I think what I'm trying to say is that's to get started. There's going to be additional dollars required, and that's going to be in out years. I guess we or whoever's sitting in these seats will have to figure out where those monies are going to come from.
Correct. And if we're not matching grant funding, then you can also look at the CRA dollars if you decide you want to do something with those in the future.
So I guess, do we want to, as a commission, do we want to stick with this amount, or do we want to up it to make it an even 400,000, which would provide, if we're lucky enough to get the grant, enough to cover all 4 sides of the McDonald House? Commissioner Persis.
I would like just to go with the 400,000 because the Historical Society is working so hard to get this building into shape, and I think it can be a premier spot in our city, and I think just doing this it's just the beginning of what needs to be done, but I think it's something that we really need to, jump into and start working on this building.
So that's one vote.
If you don't mind, Mayor. I'm in favor of the increase. The Historical Society's putting up $100,000, which isn't chump change. Thank you for doing that, by the way. I almost want to say we were probably going to be asked to spend the rest of the money anyways to complete the outside, which you might as well get ECHO to help us do that. And this will sort of take care of phase 1, which is the outside, which is a worthy endeavor.
Very good. So is that a motion and a second to amend, I guess, to add the additional dollars?
I'll make a motion to amend. I don't have the resolution. The total match to $400,000. I make a motion to amend the total match to $400,000 for resolution number 2019-197.
Moved by Commissioner Littleton.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Persis. Any further discussion on that? Commissioner Selby.
Well, I think this is a good thing to do. The exterior of the building, really the shell of the building is our responsibility, the city's responsibility. I'll be honest with you, I get it that it's a historical building, but to spend this much money is, but the good news is that 50 cents on the dollar, actually a little more than that, is coming, from the ECHO fund, and so that makes it a lot more palatable. So I will definitely vote for this.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Good deal. Did you need the exact number, Kelly? You just slung 400 even. Good deal. All right. So the amendment to 6B, Randy, we'll call the vote on that first,
Yes,
and then call the vote on the underlying motion.
Yes.
And Commissioner Littleton, did you have anything else? No. Okay. This is on the amendment to 6B to the 400,000. Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And now on the underlying motion.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And I don't know if anyone wanted to comment on any of the other consent agenda items. Commissioner Selby.
Yes, I would. I'd like to comment on a couple of things. I wanted to comment on the LED lighting for the Nova Rec tennis courts. That's another ECHO grant that we approved with the consent agenda, and I think that's fantastic. I guess only 2 of those courts right now are lighted, and they get a lot of use from what I understand. So to get all those courts lighted with LED lights that are energy efficient and brighter and come on instantly and everything else is great. And then also item D, the stormwater rebuild. And, this is, I believe, is one of those things that's potentially contributing to water quality because the infiltration, as these pipes, these metal corrugated pipes erode, soil gets in there, sand and soil gets in there, that ends up in the waterways. So it all contributes to it. The point I wanted to make relative to that.
We used to make somebody buy pizza for everybody if the cell phone went off. May not. Got it? No problem. Sorry about that interruption, Commissioner Selby.
That's okay. So if I did my math correct, we're replacing 680 feet of corrugated pipe with, I think it's this concrete pipe, at a cost of $147,000. It's $216 a linear foot, okay? And this is 680 feet. And we probably have miles of this stuff underground in the city. So, it helps me to put it into perspective of the reserves for replacements that we need for these underground systems. And I know we got a great engineering department and everything else, and I know we have a great road repair system and so forth process. But oh my gosh, it's a big number. So, and then that was it. So thank you.
Good deal. Anyone else? Bonda Garrison from the Historical Society was here to speak only if needed. So Bonda, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you, but I think it went very well. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right. We'll move to public hearings, and I'll open the public hearings, and we'll start with 7A.
Ordinance number 2019-24, an ordinance amending paragraph C, official zoning map of section 2-01, establishment of zoning districts and official zoning map of Article 1, establishment of zoning districts and official zoning map of Chapter 2, district and general regulations of the City of Ormond Beach Land Development Code by amending the official zoning map to rezone a certain parcel of real property totaling approximately 1.12 acres located at 88 South Atlantic Avenue, Volusia County parcel number 4214-09-07-0030 from B4 Central Business to PBD Planned Business Development authorizing revision of official zoning map, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, and setting forth an effective date. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2019-24, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. The only card I have is from the applicant, Joe Hopkins. I think if there's any questions for him, otherwise I just need a motion and a second.
I'd like to move ordinance 2019-24.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. Brings us to 7B.
Ordinance number 2019-25, an ordinance authorizing the execution and issuance of a development order for a planned business development to be known as Ocean Club Ormond Beach, authorizing the demolition of the existing building and authorizing the construction of a retail building consisting of approximately 8,596 square feet, together with associated site improvements to be located at 88 South Atlantic Avenue, Volusia County parcel number 4214-09-07-0030, authorizing outdoor product display under certain conditions, authorizing a rear yard wall waiver, authorizing a reduction of the rear yard landscape buffer, and requiring a dedication of land to accommodate a sidewalk along Florence Street, establishing conditions and expirations of approval, providing for recordation, and setting forth an effective date. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2019-25, read by title only.
Thank you. Again, I don't have any cards other than the applicant. We just need a motion and a second.
Move for approval ordinance number 2019-25.
Second.
Any discussion? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Wait, excuse me, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this, but didn't we get an email that I think what we're voting on includes the product display in front of the property?
We did, and I can let either the applicant or Stephen Spraker address that.
Yeah.
Joe, if you want to tackle that.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. My name is Joe Hopkins, 100 Marina Point Drive in Daytona Beach. We did submit a memo to the city on November 1st requesting that the provision for outdoor display be deleted from this ordinance.
But I think what was read includes it, right? So
It does. You have the ordinance that was approved on first reading. This is second reading. So what? Excuse me. So if the commission wants to accept the concession of the applicant, then you can treat it as an amendment. Ordinarily, we would motion on the floor, then we do a motion to amend. You vote on that, and then you come back to the underlying motion. However, if you are all in agreement and you want to, there's consensus to include as part of the underlying motion the concession by the applicant to remove the outdoor display. If that's part of the motion and the underlying second, then you can just continue with your vote, and that's fine. It'll get you through.
Can we do a voice vote on that?
Well, you need to do roll call.
Okay. So this will be a roll call. Thank you, Joe.
Yes,
on the amendment to accept the concession by the applicant.
Right. So let me ask the question this way. The maker of the motion, are you willing to include in the motion that you made the concession by the developer to remove the outdoor display?
Yes.
Okay. And the seconder of the motion, are you willing to accept that concession on behalf of? Okay.
Yes.
So the motion as a whole, then, you see where I'm going with this, Mr. Mayor, and trying to kind of squeeze it down for you?
Yep.
Since there's a concession, and the applicant's not going to complain about it, so you can kind of dispense the formalities of the procedural motions. So if you want to begin with a roll call vote again with that motion, then we'll clean the ordinance up on a tail end for you.
Okay.
This is just removing the outdoor product display.
This is on the motion to approve the project, if you will, excluding the outdoor display. So that will be, excuse me? Yes, and including the other things.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought we were going to vote on the yard, the wall, and the buffer too. Are those going to be separate things, or is this all
They were not going to be separate things. All right, let's kind of start over. So if the mover of the motion and the maker of the second are willing to rescind the motion in the second, we'll kind of start anew, since there seems to be some differences of opinion up here, and then I'll help you through the procedural aspects of this.
I rescind my original motion for
Okay.
approval.
And the seconder?
Yeah, rescind that also.
Okay. So starting anew, Let's get a motion to approve the ordinance for discussion purposes in a second as presented. And it's going to be the ordinance that you approved on first reading at the last meeting.
Good deal. So
I'll
can I
do
get
that.
that motion?
Move for approval ordinance, move for approval for discussion purposes of this ordinance.
2019-25. And seconded.
Now, Mr. Mayor, you can get into the various
Discussion, and we'll
motions.
start with Commissioner Persis.
I guess there's two pieces to this now, since the outdoor product display is now off the table. So there's the rear yard wall waiver that I guess they're asking for, and reducing the buffer from 30 feet to 15 feet. And I'm not in favor of reducing the buffer, and I am not in favor of the rear yard wall waiver either. Just to put that out there for discussion.
All right. Anyone else wish to address those issues? Deputy Mayor Kent.
Yes, I would agree with Commissioner Persis on both topics.
All right. Anyone else? Since we're still in discussion at this time.
I'm in favor, sort of what came up with what's in this ordinance now, which is the picket fence at 6 foot and the such that we voted on last time. That's what I'm in favor of moving forward. What's presented to us now.
Commissioner Selby.
Yeah, I just need clarification. Maybe Mr. Hopkins can answer this, or Mr. Spraker, but the rear wall waiver, is there a 6 foot white vinyl fence in there in place of that? Okay, all right. So then I support this as proposed with the deletion of the outdoor storage. Yeah, I support everything else, and while I'm not crazy about reducing the size of the landscape buffer, the fact that we pick up 23 parking spaces for free, the developer is going to build those parking spaces in the downtown where they are desperately needed. I think that's a fair trade-off, and the vinyl fence in lieu of a wall, I think, will be way more attractive and will fit into the neighborhood better. So I support it as it's on the table now. Oh, and also, let's forget not that the owner is dedicating land so that the sidewalk can be built on Florence there also, and that's a pretty significant concession also that I think shows good faith.
And that's where I'm at with Commissioner Selby and Commissioner Littleton. I think this was the same split we were last time. So 3-2. So we just need the waiver.
Yes, sir. You want to take one at a time?
Sure. I would say delete with the concession from the applicant, the authorizing the outdoor product display under certain conditions. Can we do that first?
Yes.
Is there a motion to delete that?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Colby, unless there's any other discussion on that, please call the vote on
Commissioner
deleting.
Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. And now, anyone want any further discussion on 2019-25? I think everybody knows where everybody is. Colby, please call the vote on the ordinance.
Commissioner Persis?
No.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
No.
Mayor Partington?
Yes, and we will close the public hearings and move to 8A.
Ordinance number 2019-40, an ordinance amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2018 to 2019 by amending the Downtown Redevelopment Trust Fund 104, the Stormwater Utility Fund 107, the Airport Fund 108, the Pension Contribution Pass-Through Fund 113, the Grants Fund 116, the 2010 Beachfront Park Bond Fund 220, the Capital Improvements Fund 301, the Equipment Renewal and Replacement Fund 302, the Transportation Improvements Fund 308, the Recreational Impact Fee Fund 310, the Water and Wastewater Fund 401, the Renewal and Replacement Fund 409, the Water System Impact Fee Fund, $434, the Wastewater System Impact Fee Fund, $435, the Water and Wastewater Construction Fund, $445, the Solid Waste Fund, $460, the Workers' Compensation Fund, $502, and the General Liability Fund, $504, and setting forth an effective date. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2019-40, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. I don't have any cards. Just need a motion in a second.
Move for approval, ordinance number 2019-40.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, Mayor, thank you, Ms. McGuire, to you and your team. Budgetary compliance isn't always fun and easy, but you do it so well.
Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And that brings us to reports, suggestions, and requests. And tonight we start with City Manager Joyce Shanahan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request a workshop on December 3rd. As you know, we've been discussing the courtyard project over on Dix and Highland, and we would like to talk to you about, we're working on a traffic calming manual that will give us some tools in our toolbox to help us address some of those traffic issues. I know that the residents have continued to be concerned about that. We're nearly completed with that, and we would like to workshop that with you on December 3rd and then bring it back to you in January for adoption.
December 3rd at 5:30?
Yeah, I think so. If it doesn't take a whole hour and a half, we'll make it 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Is
that okay?
Let me double check. I think that's fine with my schedule. Anybody else have an issue with the first Tuesday in December, December 3rd?
No, I have a city commission meeting that day.
Right afterwards.
As long as it doesn't conflict with the city commission meeting, I'm good.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Also, just wanted to update you on the Casson Park floating dock. Engineering staff has a meeting with them on Thursday. We expect that they'll return on the 18th of November and stay through the completion of the project. I know we've spoken to Mr. Leary. He's a little frustrated by the process, but we'll continue to keep him involved and informed on that. I want to thank the Commission in Halifax Health for sponsoring the Hometown Hero Banner Program. It's been a great tribute to our veterans, and we continue that tribute on Thursday, November 9th. Is that the right date?
Saturday.
No, Thursday is the lunch, right?
7th.
So that's
7th
on the
is
7th,
lunch.
excuse me. On the lunch on Thursday, November 7th is open to all veterans, and the reservations are required, so you just need to contact the Leisure Services Office at 386-676-3250, and there will be a luncheon for our veterans, and it's always great fun. We have a proclamation for them. They get to dance, and it's really a wonderful time. So I encourage you to be there. On the 9th, we're going to be having a celebration for the family members whose loved ones are on the banner poles. We will do a presentation to those, and it's for those invited guests, and it's another way to honor our veterans. Several years ago, the Commission made a strong commitment to honor their veterans, and each year you do it better and better, and we're grateful for that. I have a whole list of capital projects. If you have any questions about any of those, I'm happy to talk to you all about it, but other than that, that's all I have. Good night.
Any other questions for City Manager? Assistant City Manager Claire Whitley.
Nothing to add. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Claire. And City Attorney Randy Hayes.
No, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. And tonight we start with Commissioner Selby.
I'll be very brief. I just want to thank you, Mayor, for your leadership on the septic to sewer tonight. I think that was fantastic. I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think we'll get there. I think it's just going to take longer than we had anticipated. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Deputy Mayor Kent.
Our last First Friday movie was, I believe, Star Wars. I heard great things from our community. Halloween on our one-way street. Chief, you had, our guys and girls in blue out there making sure everybody was on their best behavior. And I was pleased when you reported back that it was wildly successful and everyone had a great time. And my last thing is a request is, Ms. Shanahan, I'd like for us to talk about the church property. I thought you were going to chat about that when you said you wanted to have a workshop, but that didn't come up.
I think we're planning for that after. Are you going to be ready in December or January? Okay.
What a good answer. I can be ready whenever.
All right. Well,
I like that.
He's a great guy. If we can do it
tomorrow. Are you ready tomorrow?
December, both of those? No?
Squeeze them into one workshop, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Try.
All right. Well, if he's ready, if not, we'll do it in December. January.
If he's not ready in December, if it's too much on the plate for December, I'm okay with January. I just want to know we have a meeting that we're going to talk about it, so we're not 18 months from now, me sitting here going, hey, how about we talk about the church property? Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Commissioner Persis.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a few brief comments. First of all, I wanted to let everyone know that on November 18th, I've been asked to speak at the elected officials roundtable about the Ormond Beach ordinance against straws on the city property. I'm very excited to do that. This is kind of really taking off, and I think that other cities want to hear what Ormond Beach is doing, so I'm going to be proud to represent our city and let everyone know what's happening about that. Also, I want to just tell staff that I am just so impressed with the Veterans Day activities that are going on and that are continuing to go on. That my stepfather, the man who really raised me, served in World War II and saw a lot of firsthand combat, and I know he would be so thrilled to see everything that's happening here in our city with our veterans. And lastly, I too want to compliment Mayor Kent for your leadership in your comments with the septic to sewer. I think you were totally right on target, and I think we are heading in the right direction. So with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you, Commissioner Persis and Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you. I don't have anything for tonight.
All right. Septic to sewer, Commissioner Selby, thank you for your leadership on that issue. At times, I think you've taken a beating unreasonably, unnecessarily. It's unfortunate that that's how things happen sometimes, but I thought your op-ed, we can't really talk about it except in a public meeting, since those are things that we may vote on someday, but was very well reasoned and put together, and I commend you for laying it out in that manner. I think it was citing the 7 specific things and asking us to look at what we can do, asking our staff to look at what we can do to be as proactive on those items as we can is a stroke of brilliance. And so I think, like you said, it's going to take a while moving forward, but it seems like all the pieces of the appropriate procedure are falling into place. So hopefully staff has everything they need with that. And thank you again for those efforts. We had the Employee Appreciation Day, I think it was last week, and it was a great event. Our employees work so hard to make this city work under Joyce and Claire and Randy's leadership. I spoke briefly during the comments right before lunch and basically, pointed out that police and fire have a great camaraderie. They joke back and forth, and they do hard work, and they do difficult work at times, but they work as a team, and any great team I've ever seen has that kind of camaraderie back and forth between the players, and so it's great to see that. And they're generally accepted and recognized as heroes. And then I also pointed out that kind of our unsung heroes are public works staff. I mean, you might see a statue of a firefighter, you might see a statue of a police officer, but you don't see a statue of a finance director sitting at a desk going like this while two other staff members try to figure out how to fund something. But it's important work, just like fixing potholes is important work, and the whole city staff works as a team, and we do appreciate them. And so it's great to be able to take just a few hours out of one day a year and thank them for that. And so it was a great celebration. Joyce and Claire, I know you put a lot of work into that, so thank you and congratulations. The Hometown Hero banner program, it was nice and cool. It was a little dark when we started out, but it was a great walk with Ormond Strong and a great ribbon cutting and kickoff to that program. And I've had so many positive comments from the public and our residents who see their family members honored up there. 96 people honored, and each one is an amazing story of service. And so I'm looking forward to Saturday morning getting to meet some of those folks and seeing them honored even further. Thursday is the luncheon, and General Audino from Congressman Waltz's office will be joining us and be speaking briefly to the veterans. And so it'll be great to have him there, and as a veteran himself, and then retired general, he'll certainly have pertinent comments. Also last week, myself and the public information officer had the opportunity to go out and celebrate 105-year-old Irma Moll's birthday, and she was such a sweet lady. She said, the secret, no drinking, no smoking, one Hershey's chocolate bar every day, and I think maybe Deputy Mayor Kent mentioned this earlier, minding your own business, and then smiling, having a good attitude. It was a lot of fun. She is an Ormond Beach resident. It's Seaside Manor, I think, is where it was. Curiously, the city limits just jut out to take that whole complex into the city of Ormond Beach, and it's Commissioner Selby's zone. But this is off the record. Where's Jarlene? Off the record, I just want everybody to know that Ms. Elston and I left well before the stripper was scheduled to be there. Okay. We don't want to see that in the paper anywhere, but I thought that was great. And then Friday, Brian Rodemacher and myself and the PIO, again, Ms. Elston, went to Germ Free, one of our local manufacturers, and they do amazing work at Germ Free. The equipment they build protects everyone who works in the White House as well as everyone on Capitol Hill, because they run all the mail through that to make sure there's no anthrax or any other germs that could potentially harm the staff members that work in those buildings. That's made right here in Ormond Beach, which is amazing in and of itself. The other thing, they were just shipping out that day. It had been, they had their final buyer inspection, and they were breaking it apart, loading it onto 20 or 30 trucks, I can't remember, semis, and shipping it up to the National Institutes of Health in Maryland, or near Maryland. It's a facility that a cancer doctor uses to cure patients. This particular doctor cured Jimmy Carter's brain cancer. He had a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And in these modules that they make, they create cells, they modify the cells to seek out and attack and kill the cancer cells, and then they grow hundreds of thousands of them, and then they take them and re-inject them into the patient. And he has about an 85% cure rate. And so he's going from being able to do that for maybe 15 or 20 people a year to hundreds a year using germ-free's buildings or modules, whatever you want to call them, that they build right here in Ormond Beach. So another amazing thing that Ormond Beach Company does. And walking through and seeing the teams of engineers, production people, and staff working together is really impressive. And Joyce, just an idea for Brian, there are a lot of really cool things that are made in Ormond Beach that people have no idea about. If we could figure out a way to list a few of those on our website, just to let people know some of the neat things that are made here, I think that would be perfect. And with that, we will be adjourned at 8:35. Thank you all.